Joining me now is Democratic Senator Robert Menendez. He is chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. Hi, Senator. First off, what have you learned about this call?
Well, I haven't gotten a full readout yet, other than, of course, it was a rather extensive call, particularly for someone who is a head of state of a country for which we have a strategic challenge with. And that the president, based on what I was told yesterday before he had the call of what he intended to say, was going to make it very clear in a very firm way that he expects China not to help Russia either get out of the international sanctions that are being levied, and certainly not to support China and be on the wrong side of history in terms of any military assistance to China as it wages an unjustified war against the people of Ukraine.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken is calling on senators to quickly confirm State Department nominees who are vital in helping Ukraine battle Russia's onslaught. Some of these are key positions to help with the refugee crisis that is going on right now. 3.2 million have fled Ukraine. That's the latest numbers. You say that the delay in confirming these nominees is like helping Putin. So does that mean that you believe the senators who are blocking these nominations are directly helping Putin?
Whether they realize it or not, they certainly are not assisting the Ukrainians. They certainly are not making life more difficult for Putin. When you have nominees, for example, the sanctions coordinator for the State Department was one of those nominees that I went to the floor to ask consent to confirm. Why? He passed the bipartisan out of the committee. And don't we want the sanctions coordinator as our strongest weapon against Putin and his economy and his unjust war to be on site working? Don't we want the assistant secretary for refugees and migration when we've had, as you pointed out, 3.2 million Ukrainian refugees and probably more to be added to that dynamic? Don't we want the assistant administrator for Europe from USAID that could help with the assistance to deal with the migration, the forced migration out of Ukraine? Don't we want the assistant secretary for nuclear and chemical non-proliferation on the job? These are all qualified individuals who passed the committee for the most part with bipartisan votes, sitting on the Senate floor and being impeded only by Senate Republicans for getting confirmed. And in doing so, I do believe that at the end of the day, they're helping Putin, not the Ukrainians. They're not helping Zelensky. Neither are the 31 Senate Republicans who voted against the legislation that gave Ukraine billions of dollars in assistance.
Yeah, some Republican senators are calling on President Biden to actually do more to help Ukraine. Some of those senators voted against the spending bill that included $1.3 million of aid for Ukraine. So how does that square? How do you respond to that?
Well, it is the height of hypocrisy. But worse than that, it is one thing to stand and give a standing ovation to President Zelensky in his address, which he certainly deserved. But what he deserves, and the Ukrainian people deserve far more, is the full $13.6 billion that was in that bill to help him with lethal defensive assistance as well as with humanitarian assistance. What he needs is having those assistant secretaries of state that can push against Russia and its allies in terms of chemical or biological weapons not to use it. What he and the Ukrainians need is assistance for the 3.2 million that have had to flee Ukraine and millions more who are displaced inside of Ukraine, having the assistant secretary who can direct that effort as well as get international support for it. So that's what the Ukrainian people need. And it is mind-boggling that they stand up and applaud. They make speeches on the Senate floor that President Biden should be stronger. President Biden, over the last 2 years, with the help of Congress, has spent nearly $2 billion in defensive assistance to Ukraine, as we should.
Right.
So it is the height of hypocrisy.
I want to ask you, you mentioned chemical weapons. Is that the red line for you for more U.S. involvement?
Well, look, the dynamics, I don't create arbitrary red lines. I've learned over 30 years not to do that. But I will say that the use of chemical weapons or the use of a tactical nuclear weapon changes the dynamic of this conflict And NATO and the United States would have to recalibrate at that time.
All right, Senator Bob Menendez, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your perspective.